Hey there, folks. If you want to keep up with the latest global developments, make sure to follow S News so you don't miss this video or any of our future updates. And don't forget to support us by subscribing, liking and dropping a comment below. We really appreciate it. Public debt is rising and, well, the whole world is holding its breath, waiting for an explosion that could reshape the global scene. With these unprecedented tensions escalating, the decisive showdown between the United States and Iran has officially entered a point of no return. Armed forces worldwide are on high alert. Urgent plans are underway for preemptive strikes and counterattacks. Meanwhile, Israel has taken action. The Israeli Air Force precisely bombed the Syrian Ministry of Defense headquarters, a clear message to Iran and the armed groups it supports. The situation in Damascus is heating up by the hour. At the same time, the Pentagon released its latest assessment, revealing a very worrying situation in Iran's nuclear facilities. This raised fears that it might only be a matter of weeks or even days before Israel or the US take action. On the Ukrainian front, President Volodymyr Zelensky suddenly announced a major deal with President Donald Trump, making the entire Russian leadership feel like they're sitting on a powder keg. Many analysts believe this deal could include strategic assets and long-term defense commitments. The silent threat from the Russian military hinted at a serious warning about using tactical nuclear weapons if their cowardly Kaliningrad enclave is attacked again. Europe is prepared. Recently, Britain and Germany, the two heavyweights of NATO, signed a historic defense treaty, confirming their readiness to fight together if Russia fires first. The European Union showed a strong spirit of unity and determination in this military standoff. Here's a snapshot of the biggest developments in the past 24 hours. From the Middle East to Eastern Europe, from the Syrian battlefield to the Iranian nuclear corridor and the geopolitical front. A new era begins, and the choice is clear: freedom or submission. Everything will be sent to you and your friends here. Please follow the detailed updates. As the US and Iran face off, the world is holding its breath before the 0 hour. Ladies and gentlemen, the fire that broke out on the USS Vincennes in 1988 didn't just down an Iranian civilian plane. It ignited over 3 decades of hostility between the US and the Islamic Republic of Iran. On May 3, 1988, a US warship mistakenly shot down an Airbus A300, thinking it was a fighter jet, killing 290 civilians. Washington called it a tragic accident, but for Tehran, it marked the start of an unresolved enmity. A few years later, the Iran-Contra scandal exposed a secret US-Iran deal, over 1,500 missiles sold to Tehran in exchange for hostage releases and illegal funding for Nicaraguan rebels. The scandal shattered trust in then-President Reagan's administration. In 2015, the nuclear deal with Iran brought short-lived hope. But in 2018, President Trump unilaterally withdrew from the deal and reimposed sanctions on Iran. Tehran responded by ramping up uranium production to challenge the world. In January 2020, the US assassinated General Qasem Soleimani, the right-hand man of Iran's supreme leader. Tehran vowed retaliation. Since then, US attacks and troop presence in the Middle East have increased like never before. The situation peaked in June 2025, when the US launched airstrikes on 3 Iranian nuclear sites using advanced bunker-buster bombs, the TPU-57. Trump claimed he destroyed Iran's nuclear program, but US intelligence says the damage was mostly symbolic, and the program could bounce back within months. Inside the US administration, conflicting reports and cancelled media briefings raised questions about transparency and politicization of information. From the 65-year Iran-Contra scandal to the 2025 attacks, this cycle has created a never-ending spiral of conflict. The world still holds its breath, waiting to see if peace will come or if the Middle East will continue its slide toward all-out war. The nuclear countdown between the US and Iran continues, and every decision now could be the line between dialogue and destruction.
Israel bombed the Syrian Ministry of Defense. The situation is complicated. Tensions between Israel and Syria keep rising as the Israeli army bombed the Syrian military headquarters and Syrian soldiers in other areas. This Israeli move sparked reactions from many countries. Israel directly attacked the Syrian presidential office. On May 16, 2025, Israel launched airstrikes on the heart of Damascus, hitting the Syrian Ministry of Defense headquarters and an area near the presidential palace. The attacks mainly targeted central Damascus, including the ministry, the presidential and military headquarters, and other military sites nearby. In addition to striking many sites in the south, Israel also hit Syrian government soldiers and military personnel. Israel bombed the Ministry of Defense headquarters multiple times, including 2 major air raids. They hit the entrance to the HQ, causing damage that stopped the building from collapsing completely. Israel said it also targeted military zones around the Syrian presidential area. Syria's health ministry reported a series of Israeli missiles hitting Damascus, killing 3 people and injuring 34. The Israeli military said its intervention was to protect a minority sect in southern Syria. Earlier, Syrian government forces and Bedouin militias clashed with armed Bedouin groups in Suwaida city, southern Syria. Israel accused senior Syrian general staff leaders of directing campaigns against Russian forces in Suwaida. On the same day, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said, "We are acting to save our brothers in Syria and eliminate the regime's gangs." After the bombing, Syria's Interior Ministry and Druze leaders announced a new truce, but it's unclear if the violence will stop. This fighting comes at a sensitive time. Iran has lifted most sanctions on Syria and established secret relations with the Syrian government under acting President Ahmad Ansara. At the same time, diplomatic efforts are underway to improve Israel-Syria relations. With Russia's support, Israel seems to have other goals. Since overthrowing Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in December 2024, Israel has been expanding control in southern Syria. Israel has avoided moves toward a security agreement with Syria and instead continued bombing the country throughout 2025. Suwaida province is strategically important because it borders both Israel and Jordan. Israeli officials said the air campaign aims to stop hostile forces forming near the Syrian border. A Damascus-based strategic studies director, Anna Monk, said Israel won't allow the Syrian government to extend its influence over Syrian lands.
So there's a new American assessment about Iran's nuclear sites. Basically, it shows that last month's U.S. airstrikes only managed to destroy 1 out of 3 uranium enrichment sites in Iran.
5 current and 1 retired US officials familiar with the damage assessment told NBC News that one site was heavily damaged, which slowed its operations down quite a bit.
But, the other 2 sites? They weren't really hit that hard and could probably keep working for months if Iran decides to do so.
This new assessment is just one part of the Trump administration's ongoing effort to figure out where Iran's nuclear program stands after those US airstrikes on the enrichment facilities.
And 4 U.S. officials said the latest intelligence was recently shared with lawmakers, Defense Department folks, and allies.
US Central Command actually has a more comprehensive plan to strike Iran. It would target 3 more sites, and the campaign is expected to last for weeks, not just a single night.
SBC News, quoting 3 current and former officials, reported that the plan is definitely long-term.
President Trump was briefed on this plan, but he rejected it, saying it conflicted with his policy to withdraw from foreign conflicts instead of getting more involved. He was also worried it could lead to heavy casualties on both sides.
A source familiar with the situation put it this way: "We're ready for anything, but President Trump isn't."
Now, after the airstrikes on Iran, Mr. Trump claims the strikes were a huge military success and that Iran's main uranium enrichment sites are completely destroyed.
President Jan Zelensky told the New York Post he's discussing a major drone deal with U.S. President Donald Trump. The talks focus on, a revolutionary deal that would allow the U.S. and Ukraine to support each other in aviation technology. Kyiv offered to share all its modern warfare knowledge gained during the 3-year conflict with Russia. Based on this, the U.S. will buy combat-tested drones from Ukraine, and in return, Kyiv will buy some American weapons. The American people need these technologies and they should be in their arsenal. Zelensky called this a great deal, a win-win for both sides. Previously, Financial Times and Washington Post published documents confirming the White House chief called on the Crimean government leader to launch attacks on Moscow and Sanbor. According to the Financial Times, Trump did this as part of a strategy to force Russia to negotiate. As Washington knows, Zelensky responded by asking the U.S. leader for more weapons. At the same time, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt quickly removed this information from public posts. She said Trump never asked Zelensky to attack Moscow or Saskatchewan during their phone call, and that the U.S. president is working tirelessly to end the conflict in Ukraine. Earlier on May 14th, the White House gave Russia a 50-day deadline to sign a peace agreement. If Russia fails to meet the terms, Washington threatened to impose a 100% tariff on imports from Russia, plus additional taxes on countries buying Russian oil, gas, and other energy sources.
With all this happening, Russia is left deeply worried and the stakes in the region just keep getting higher. These statements came after comments from the commander of U.S. military forces in Europe and Africa. General Christopher Jonah said in an interview with Defense News that NATO has the ability to wipe Kaliningrad off the map like never before. General Jonah explained that Kaliningrad, surrounded by NATO countries, was targeted in alliance plans to neutralize Russian air defenses like the S-400 system and the Iskander missile, which can carry nuclear warheads. He added that NATO is developing a deterrence strategy on its eastern flank to strengthen ground forces and coordinate with the defense industry. These comments at a press conference in Germany sparked a strong reaction from Moscow, which sees them as provocative and a threat to national security. Kaliningrad is one of 46 administrative regions in Russia, but is separated from the rest of the country. It used to be part of Germany, but became Soviet territory after World War II and now belongs to Russia. According to Asia Times, Kaliningrad is very important strategically, often called Russia's unsinkable aircraft carrier in the middle of NATO, and serves as a military base. This area is crucial for Russia's strategy to create a zone denying access and attacks in the Baltic Sea region. Kaliningrad also borders the Suwalki Corridor, a 60-kilometer stretch linking Poland to neighboring countries, which NATO sees as vulnerable. If tensions rise between Russia and NATO, Russian forces and equipment would be heavily concentrated in the heart of the military alliance and ready for war. That means Kaliningrad can also threaten NATO. The strategic location of Kaliningrad makes it both a threat to NATO and a vulnerability for Russia. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or North Korea, falls within NATO's sphere of influence, so in case of conflict it would be easier for NATO to cut it off from mainland Russia. Any assault on the peninsula would provoke a harsh response. Leonid Slepky, chairman of Russia's Parliamentary Foreign Affairs Committee, told the TASS news agency on May 17th that an attack on Kaliningrad is effectively an attack on Russia itself. He stressed that all retaliatory measures would be taken, including the use of nuclear weapons. Slepky warned that any attack on Kaliningrad would be considered a direct attack on Russia, with Moscow responding according to the nuclear doctrine approved by President Vladimir Putin on November 19, 2024. That doctrine allows nuclear weapons to be used if Russia's existence is threatened, or if a large-scale conventional attack occurs, including drones and cruise missiles. Slepky called on Western leaders to act responsibly to avoid escalating tensions.
Europe is shaking.
Britain and Germany have signed a historic defense agreement, preparing to fight together if Russia fires the first shot.
On May 17th in London, German Chancellor Verismus and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer officially signed the Kensington Treaty, an unprecedented bilateral defence pact between two European countries, signalling strong continental solidarity against a possible full-scale war with Russia. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of this update. Thanks for listening and sticking with us through all these developments. Don't forget to subscribe, like and comment, and be sure to follow S News for more updates and future videos. Take care and see you